All right, everyone, welcome back to Financial Clarity for Doctors. I'm Corey Janoff, joined as always by Rachelle van der Zanden.
Hello.
And you've probably heard us say before, personal finances are a lot more personal than finance. People's goals and objectives differ, their stage of life differs, incomes, etc. Appetite for certain strategies or investments varies. But today, Rachelle and I want to talk about kind of how we ourselves approach things such as debt, retirement savings, college savings, et cetera, in our personal lives, to give you an idea of what, we might be doing. So, and see how it, is similar or maybe different than how you might approach things. How do the financial professionals handle their finances? Um, we're going to talk more high level strategy, theory, thoughts, and not get into like specific numbers, because anytime you talk about a specific number, people get hung up on the number and, they miss the forest for the trees. So, um, but yeah, we're going to kind of go through all the main things that people focus on in their personal finances, from retirement savings to budgeting to college planning, insurances, taxes, etc. So,
I kind of love this because I feel like a lot of times you're not allowed to talk about money in your personal life. It's just like, I think people do a little bit more than they used to, but still not very much. And I'm like, I like to geek out on this stuff. I want to tell people what I do. But
I know, right? I am
yeah.
totally comfortable talking finances with people, but I recognize that other people may not be that comfortable, or
Yep.
it might make them uncomfortable. So, you know,
Yep.
I'll I'll go into it if it seems like people are wanting to or bringing it up, but I'm not going to
Absolutely.
push the subject on people.
Yeah. Corey, tell us first what your kind of like overarching objectives are. Like what's the big picture?
Yeah, so I think, you read the internet and you'll get lots of recommendations on how you should, develop a financial plan or strategy. I think a lot of folks will say, "Oh, you must have a written financial plan, you must have everything mapped out, etc." I don't know if I buy into that 100%. I'm all for having a written financial plan if it helps you. At the same time, I don't think it's imperative to have a like written document that details your financial strategy and plan, but having more of a maybe concrete set of objectives, or what's the purpose in your life? Like, what do you want money to ultimately do for you? And for me, financially speaking, like, I value autonomy and control over my time more than anything. I want to be able to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, with whom I want to do it, and not have to answer to anybody. With a wife and kids, it doesn't always work out that way. But, I kind of intentionally got into this profession. You know, Entering college, I knew I wanted to go into a career where I didn't have a boss. I essentially was working for myself, was willing to work 12 hours a day for me rather than 8 hours a day for someone else. And, be able to control my schedule. So, I can do that, which is great. Like, I can go skiing on a Wednesday afternoon with the kids because they get out of school early on Wednesdays because Oregon has limited school days and hours. um, I can take off on a Friday and go play golf if I want to. I got to plan a little in advance, but it's nice being able to do that. So, trying orchestrating, making sure we're saving a healthy amount so that I can afford to do those things. If we were living paycheck to paycheck, I probably couldn't afford to go play a round of golf, or go skiing. Those are kind of expensive hobbies. But yeah, I'd rather, you know, go do something fun and do something that I want to do than kind of grind away at that you know household chores, for example.
hmm Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. Like just having control over your time and your schedule is so important. And to be able to do that while working is great. And obviously, there are times when Corey and I work more than we want to, period. But but just knowing that you have some flexibility with your schedule, like even at this point, and trying to work towards, increased financial freedom over time by saving is huge. I think the other thing that I focus on probably more than a lot of people is spending. And I think for me, it's partially like a value-based thing. Like, I don't want to spend money on stuff we don't need, and therefore like continue to spend money on stuff we don't need and make myself work more than I necessarily need to just because the world says like we need all of this stuff because we don't. And I hate that we, put ourselves in these boxes where we have these big houses and big mortgage payments and we have to spend so much money just to pay our bills, and that forces us to work hard just to pay our bills. And like that's not where I'm at in life, and that's not where I want to be. So we live, in a fairly modest house in the burbs, and I love our house and we're never leaving it because our mortgage payment is tiny and it's amazing. And if I can keep my fixed expenses fairly low and really prioritize spending money on flexible expenses that are important to me and important to our family, then it makes me feel better about working and earning money because you know that you're doing it for things that are actually important to you. And so that's huge. I think we talk about that a little bit in our family too. Like we just don't want to make money for the sake of making money and spending more money in a way that doesn't actually bring us joy.
Yeah, spend on what brings you joy and avoid the stuff that doesn't. And for most people, not all, but for most people, the things that bring them joy are doing things, experiences, activities with people they enjoy being around and doing it on their own terms. Yeah, material things can bring you a brief bit of joy. But for most people, that's a fleeting feeling. And you get more joy out of those activities and events.
Yep. With the next thing we're going to tackle is emergency reserves. I think that we all approach this a little bit differently, but I'm fairly conservative. I target like 6 months of having like fixed expenses, just bills and groceries covered for emergencies. But I have a hard time thinking that I could easily break it down to just the necessities if something really big happened. So I feel like that probably wouldn't last me 6 months. So like if we had zero income, it probably wouldn't. But I also know that there are other resources that we have to tap into. It's hard to rein yourself in quickly, but if there's a real emergency, you can break into your 401k or your 403b. Like we don't want to do that, and hopefully we never need to do that, but you do have other ways that you can potentially, you know, cover things for a little bit. And if you have adequate insurances, for like the really big things that could potentially happen, hopefully you don't need to do that ever.
Yeah, I'm with you. Try and keep about 6 months of expenses in a high interest savings account. Right now you can get about 4.5% or more in some cases in a high interest savings. So if the cash is just sitting there, get that free money.
Absolutely. Yep.
Let's see. Cash flow planning slash budgeting, which I don't like the word budget, but
You.
um, maybe spending planning, if you will. So luckily Lindsay and I are both pretty mindful of our spending. We kind of are cut from the same cloth there. We don't overspend. We look for deals. I've personally never been a big budgeter. Nothing against people who are. I'm all for it if it works for you. But I'm just kind of naturally cheap and frugal and know my limits. Um, I don't really buy new stuff often. If it ain't broke, don't replace it. Is kind of the mentality. I definitely prioritize saving towards financial goals. And in my opinion, as long as you're on track to reaching the goals and objectives that are important to you, do whatever you want with what's left over. So, I make sure we're saving enough for retirement, put money aside for the kids' colleges, our debts are in good order. So with whatever's left over, we can spend it if we want to, or save more of it, which would, we kind of do a combination of the both. Give some money to charity. So it's we got some flexibility there, which is nice.
Yep. I think with cash flow planning and like you budgeting, a lot of people don't need to do it. Like you just don't need to actually look at it and be like, "Oh, we need to spend less in this area and maybe like we can afford to do more over here." But I like to review spending just to see like, okay, does this make sense for us? Like, is this something that maybe we shouldn't be doing? I remember I was so mad at Nick yesterday because he went to a specific store where he likes to buy coffee and got coffee, and we were out of half and half, and he refused to buy coffee at that or half and half at that place because it's more expensive than where we usually buy half and half. We were out of half and half. So now we have coffee and we don't have half and half. And I was like, Nick, that $3 does not matter. And then our daughter looks at me and she goes, Mom, you don't need coffee that bad. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a ridiculous conversation.
Wait till you're older, kid.
I know. It was so silly. And I mean, anyway, but it is nice to be mindful of spending. But in reality, for many of us, it doesn't matter if we spent $3 more on half and half than we should have. Um, anyway, I have used Mint to like track spending in the past, which that app is kind of going away, which sucks. But the thing I like about that is that it puts money in categories. So you can see like, okay, how much am I spending on this? How much money am I spending on this? Does that seem reasonable to me? Like, did that did that feel good this month? Does it matter that I spent that much money on that? And I like to do like an annual review of that as well, because I think some things are just longer term patterns, especially with travel and stuff like that. Like it's not going to be something that you're doing every month. And then you look at it and you're like, okay, so for this year, maybe we spend a little less on travel because sure, that trip was great, but it was also stressful. And I don't want to do that again. And maybe we can go camping a couple times and it will just be less stressful or whatever it is. Like you can make adjustments if you look at those bigger trends. So I do find it helpful to review them.
Yeah, no, I think it's good to periodically go through your credit card and bank account transactions, make sure everything's on the up and up. It doesn't look like anything's erroneous on there. You actually did get reimbursed for that thing you returned. Um, and just have a general idea of where you're spending money. I think having awareness is beneficial.
Yeah.
But not 100% sold on making a hard and fast budget for yourself. But if you want to do that, by all means, go for it.
Yeah.
You do you.
I think jumping into like specific spending things, like I am like Corey, you talked a little bit about time being important to you. I'm all about like we have cleaners come twice a month. And that is something I will pay for all day long. Because also, by the way, it helps with marital discord. Like I can no longer do certain things without feeling some anger. And so if I can offload that to someone else, it makes it so much easier. So there are some things that we intentionally spend more money on. Another one is honestly alcohol, which maybe I shouldn't admit, but like the wine club membership, do we need that? No. Does it bring me joy? Yes, it does. So we're going to keep doing it. And, there's some things that we intentionally do choose to spend a little bit more money on because of the amount of, like maybe house cleaning. House cleaning does bring me joy. I was going to say maybe it doesn't bring me joy, but it does. Like there are things that you can focus on and it's well worth it.
Oh, I'm with you. Like, yeah, I made a decision a few years ago. It's like, I'm gonna buy the nice bourbon now. I'm not gonna buy the cheap stuff. Like, I can afford to spend, the 40, 60, $100 on a bottle if I really want to. Like, we don't drink that much, so it lasts a long time.
Hmm.
And it's, when you break it down, it's cheaper than getting a drink out at a bar or restaurant. It's cheaper than wine,
It
honestly,
is. No, it would, yeah. Nick and I talked about this a lot over Christmas because I bought him a couple of nice bottles of whiskey. And then I was like comparing it to the wine in our wine club membership. And I was like, per drink, that whiskey is way less expensive than the wine.
Oh yeah, like a $20 bottle of wine is like a $60 bottle of whiskey. Like
Yeah,
it's
because there's like 5 glasses in a bottle of wine,
yeah, four
maybe.
to
And
five
whiskey is,
glasses of wine. It's like
yeah,
12 to 15 in a,
yeah,
750 ml bottle of
we're
80
breaking it
proof.
down.
Yeah. Yeah, do that math, the cost per ounce or cost per drink. That's what us
Yeah.
financial nerds do. But yeah, spend on what brings you joy. Like we hired a landscaping company in the fall to clean up all the pine needles and pine cones in our yard, which, is very tedious and meticulous and annoying. Would have taken me multiple hours to do. Like I don't, if you like look at my actions, they don't always make sense. And I think that's, goes for everyone. Like I'll think twice about adding guac to a burrito that, it's like $2 more, but I'll spend, $100 on a bottle of
It's
whiskey.
like the half and half, right?
Yeah. And I try to do better about that. It's like, I know, all right, we need this thing. I know it's cheaper at that other grocery store, but is it really worth my time and energy to save $1 to get this thing at the other grocery store when it's going to, take me an extra like 30 minutes in my day to go to multiple ones? Let's just buy this. If I only need the one thing, let's just get it at this more expensive store that I'm already at, you know, like whatever. Anyways, so yeah, factoring in the time and trying to value that time in the equation versus just the dollars spent. But yeah, like um, I hesitate to get the more expensive food item on the menu, but I'll buy the good seats for a comedy show or a play or sporting event or something. We don't like it's maybe once a year that I go to one of those, but still, like I don't care about clothes, so I don't ever buy new clothes. Um, but I won't hesitate to play golf at an expensive golf course. I get more joy out of that than getting a new pair of jeans. Like I have one pair of jeans. I've had it for probably a decade, and my my daily attire is shorts and sweatpants. Like it's not, we don't go out very often. So the one pair of jeans suffices.
Hmm. I love that the jeans are your going out pants.
Oh yeah. Well, we live in a town where like formal wear is a Patagonia jacket. It's like
Mhm.
yeah, it's not a high class town. People don't dress up here.
Absolutely. Which maybe brings us to debt. How do
Yes,
we
debt.
not have debt? You start,
Yeah.
Corey.
So, avoid high interest rate debt, pay it off if you have it. We pay off our credit cards every month. The only other debt we have is a mortgage at 4.75%. We got that in 2022 before rates really took off. And we have a handful of payments left on a 0.9% interest rate car loan, which I've just been paying the minimums on it because I receive more interest from my high interest savings account than I'm paying to the car loan. So I'm like making money by not paying that off faster. So that'll get paid off, by the end of the year, and then it'll just be the mortgage, and we'll probably keep it that way for a while. I have, I only have like 19,000 miles on my car. That thing will last another 20 years if I want it to. Um,
Yep.
Marital arguments go back and forth about the timing of when to get new cars, but we'll I think we're because Lindsay's car is coming up on 7 years old now, but same thing. It's got like 50,000 miles. It's a Toyota. It's gonna last another 20 years if we want it to.
Yeah.
But yeah. So eventually we'll probably get a new car, but not immediately.
Not anytime soon. Yeah, we've got a super low interest rate mortgage that we refinanced during the pandemic. So it's like 2.5%, which feels amazing. Yeah. And I think we'll live here forever. I can't see myself putting extra towards the mortgage. Like I don't think that will ever happen. It just won't. But I love our credit cards because we get points and cash back and all that stuff, but we pay them off every month, obviously. And then we didn't have any other debt for a long time, but in the last like year and a half, we did do like a car loan and we added solar to our house and like the interest rates on those were low enough that it made sense to do it. Like we put a little extra down on the car because it was right around 4%. Then I didn't love that, so we just put a little down on the front. But yeah, other than that, I think maybe we'll probably just pay not extra on any of those. And then we have like, we used a 0% loan to get a new refrigerator and stuff just because it's free. So why not? It's like much easier for cash flow planning to just have a little extra every month that you don't even notice versus, taking a couple grand out of your savings account. And I really like using credit where it's useful. I think that it can be a very helpful tool. Like that's a chunk of money that you can now do something else with, something more productive potentially. So I think that I like to use credit where it makes sense to use credit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're on the same page there. If the interest rate is low or free, use it. If not,
Yep.
pay cash. No plans to pay off the mortgage faster. I think I can achieve a greater long-term average rate of return on investment. So I'd rather save more and retire sooner, even if it means I'm retiring before the mortgage is paid off. But I don't know if I'll ever truly quit working. Like I'll probably maybe scale down over time. Have a smaller client base one day, but
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's yeah, no hurry to pay off the lower interest rate debts.
Yeah, I think with the mortgage, I doubt we'll ever pay extra on it. I think even if we had that payment and we were fully retired, it's just not huge anyway. So it's a pretty small fixed payment, and I think that like we could easily still pay that when we're retired. It's just not going to be an issue for cash flow ever, I don't think.
Speaking of retirement, what's your approach to retirement savings and retirement planning?
Yeah, I think I'm more like our clients in this scenario where I kind of got started late with retirement savings just because I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do with my life. you know. So I was like, "Ooh, should I go to law school? Nah, that doesn't seem like fun." You know, like all of these different things, and like finally settled into financial advising in my 30s. And I had saved a little bit up to that point, but not much. So I think really similar to a lot of our clients. And Nick had started saving, like he had a little bit more than me, but I still felt like we were just kind of getting a late start. So we definitely prioritize long-term savings a lot. We're probably around like a 25% savings rate right now, and definitely plan to keep increasing that over time. And we do almost everything on a Roth basis that we can right now. So like 401ks, backdoor Roth. We are also like fully funding an HSA. And we'll talk a little bit more about health insurance later too. But I think we'll probably be in a lower tax bracket in the future. So that's why I prioritize Roth savings. But it's also like I'm one of those people that thinks tax rates will probably be higher in the future. And I don't know that for sure, but I'd rather not worry about it. Like I'd rather have a good chunk of money in retirement that I just don't have to worry about paying taxes on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. We were probably saving closer to 25%, and then last year we bought a house, so that savings dipped a little bit.
Hmm.
But yeah, trying to save at least 20%. I've been, pretty much doing that since my early 20s, since I started working. So
Yeah.
we're at a good clip. But yeah, I like to try and increase that over time. I've already said it multiple times today, but prioritize saving over spending, which sometimes can lead to marital disagreements when Lindsay wants to get new furniture for the house, and I'd rather save more into retirement because our couch still works and our kids are just going to ruin whatever new furniture we get. Um, and like a small part of me cringes every time I spend money, like I want to try and get the best bang for my buck. I can afford the guac at Chipotle, but I'll often get a veggie burrito where it comes with free guac instead. And it's like you get the best of both worlds, and maybe it's a tiny bit healthier for you.
It is a
Uh,
tiny bit healthier, probably. And by the
yeah.
way, I didn't know that, and now I'm doing that forever.
Yeah. Another hack, if you want, you get just a bean and cheese burrito, and it's
Hmm.
like $2.50. And then and it's like a full on just load it up for you. They just charge it as like a side of beans or something.
There we
And then you
go.
can add the guac to it. So if you just want bean and cheese and guac, you can get like a $4 or $5 burrito from Chipotle. Anyways, yeah, try to increase that savings rate for retirement every single year. Max out all the tax favorable accounts first and foremost, the 401k, backdoor Roth, then do the rest to a taxable account. Um, we're kind of in a unique spot with our line of work where part of our income comes through as W-2, part of it's 1099. So, I'll do the max out the employee portion of the Roth 401k on the W-2 side, and then do pre-tax to a solo 401k from the 1099 earnings. Um, so, get a combination of pre-tax and Roth, which I think, is beneficial. Get some tax deductions today, some tax-free money in retirement. It's, win-win. But yeah, don't know if I'll ever completely retire. Like the idea of being financially independent, so that's why I want to prioritize the savings. Would rather have too much money and just give some away to charity or something in retirement than not have enough. And you never know what life's going to throw at you. Health could prevent me from working as long as I would want to. I may need to help support kids in the future or family members or whatever. Like you never know. So
Yeah,
rather be over prepared than under prepared.
always. Yeah, I think I'll probably want to get out at some point. I'm not a person that can work and not feel stress. Like I think some people are very good at compartmentalizing I'm not. So I think eventually I'm just gonna be like, oh, I don't want to deal with the stress of work anymore, just period. So I don't anticipate doing that super early. Like it's just not, I don't know. I don't think that's in me. I think I would get very, very, very bored very quickly. But sometime in my 60s, I'm probably gonna be like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Done. Yeah.
Find something else to do that's less stressful, maybe.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
yourself busy so you don't get bored.
Yeah. And maybe less obligations. Like, oh, I can do it if I want to do it. Like that kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
I guess you could still do financial planning. Like there's, I know the CFP does like pro bono stuff where they're looking for
Hmm.
volunteers to
Yeah.
help.
Or like mentorship, things like that.
You can do it on
Yeah.
your own terms.
Yeah.
Let's see, investment strategies. What do we invest in? So I invest in the exact same stuff as my clients. Like I'm in the identical portfolios that they're in. If you're of a similar age and career stage as me, like we're in the same stuff. There's no differences there. I do have a small portion of my money in structured notes in some of my accounts. Where I think we've talked about those before in a previous episode, where I'll find ones that are like that give you more than 1x upside, but they have a downside buffer. So as long as the bank that's issuing them doesn't go out of business or go bankrupt, which is if you're getting them from a JP Morgan or you know, Citibank, Morgan Stanley, some of the large institutions, it's pretty low risk. That's something that they're not going to be able to repay their debts. But so those are kind of nice where you get downside protection if market goes down, but you get some upside. You can participate in the upside even more so than the market in some cases. And the catch is your money's tied up for whatever duration you signed up for. So if you buy a 3-year note, well, it's locked in for 3 years, then you can't really touch it. So not as liquid there as a more traditional investment vehicle. But um, yeah, just a medley of mutual funds and ETFs, mostly index funds, few active funds mixed in there, where our investment team feels like there's opportunities. Stock trading doesn't interest me. Like I've dabbled in it before in college and, I've bought a few stocks here and there, but like too much time and energy to really, if I'm not going to spend the necessary time to research and thoroughly an investment to know if it's really a worthwhile opportunity. If there's a company that I like for whatever reason or feel like it's their stock's low, I might throw a couple bucks in it, but that's few and far between. Real estate doesn't interest me either. Too many headaches, too concentrated of a risk. The primary residence is enough for me, in my opinion. So like I've always been a big fan of statistics. Like in high school, I would pull out the newspaper every morning, go to the sports section, read the box scores from all the football games or the basketball games, and go through the individual stats. And so I was really good at fantasy football in high school. I like knew all the players and who was good. Um, but big fan of of data, and the data is strongly against individual stock picking. Like it's just not. If you use the gambling analogy, like the house wins and you are not the house. Your
Hmm.
odds are actually probably better by going to a casino. Actually, not true at all. Actually, you'll still get positive returns over the long run in individual stocks. It's just you'll probably do 50% better if you invest in just a diversified index fund or something. Um, so it's pretty drastic that expected difference. Um, and yeah, there's really no investments out there that have consistently outperformed the stock market over the long run. When you look at some of these alternative types of things, private equity, hedge funds, you name it, like none of them have consistently outperformed the long-term results of stocks. Maybe a surgical center where you guys as doctors can buy in at an artificially low share price and they immediately start spitting out um, returns and distributions that equate to like a 20% ROI on your money year over year. Like, but that doesn't exist to the normal public. So it's yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's just not necessary a lot of times to take on that extra risk. Like it just, you don't need to do that in order to accomplish your financial goals, but some people do enjoy it. Yeah. Um, yeah, same thing. I'm in model portfolios, same as my clients. With my husband's 401k, I even have it in a target date. So, and that's partially because like the individual mutual fund options in his plan were not great. Like there just wasn't a good option to put together something that was better. So I was like, why would I try this and then have to maintain it? Or I could just put it in this very inexpensive index target date and worry about it later. Like if I want to rebalance out of that at some point, I can, which is nice with retirement plans. You know that what you're picking is not necessarily a forever pick. Um, with other things that like I don't have in model portfolios because I can't, like my 401k, for example, and then also our HSA investments, I usually check on it maybe like once or twice a year and tweak it a little bit, like if the allocation seems like it's off. And that's about it. I really think that a hands-off approach is better than like getting in there and messing around with it all the time. We do have like a little brokerage account for our daughter, and I do have like a couple of tiny stock picks in there, just like buy and hold things. I'm not going to mess around with it. It was just for fun more than anything else. Like going to the casino and seeing what you can win for your little 8-year-old daughter. But
Go to Chuck E. Cheese and play the
oh
games with the
my
tickets.
gosh. Yes, those things are just teaching our children to gamble, I swear. Speaking of kids, I think with college funding, you get some different approaches here as well. Like we have a 529 account and we have for a long time. We do like 2 deposits per month. I don't know why. That's why I set it up though, or that's how I set it up. And then I think I'm more worried about overfunding it than some people are. Like I do think that the trends in college education are changing a little bit. Like it almost seems like maybe not everyone's going to go to college. And I think that she will. Like I don't think, but there, I don't know, there's this part of me that thinks there's a small possibility that she won't and that that's okay. But I really just wonder like what that will look like. We have a neighbor across the street with a 23-year-old daughter. I'm sure I've talked about her on this podcast before because it's my nightmare. But basically, she went to 4 years of private college education. She got a degree, and now she's like, I nanny sometimes. I'm like, oh my God. Like, what are you doing? Like that's what I don't want to happen. I don't want her to go to college without any purpose, get an expensive 4-year degree, and then come out and do whatever she could have done without a 4-year degree. Like that is a huge thing. But anyway, so we're also putting a little bit in a brokerage account just because I want her to have some money that's a little bit more flexible. And obviously knowing that we can transfer a lot of money from a 529 to a Roth IRA for her just based on the new rules is it gives me a little peace of mind too.
Yeah, I've been funding 529 since our kids were born. I try and increase the amount a little every year. And then my plan is once I have the equivalent of 4 years worth of in-state public school accounted for, gonna direct those ongoing deposits to the brokerage account that's more flexible. I'm pretty confident they'll probably go to college. I don't know for a fact, but trade school, maybe, who knows? Um,
But you also have two kids. So if one of them doesn't and the other one goes to a private school,
yeah,
it's all good, you
that could
know?
be a possibility.
Yeah.
If neither of them go to college at all, there's probably some future, like like I said, trade school, apprenticeship programs, whatever, where there might be some costs associated with it that you could use the 529 for. Otherwise, like I got a niece we could use it for. We could use it for ourselves. Like I'd be on board with going to culinary school when I quote unquote retire, and
How about that?
not to like go work at a restaurant, but for my own personal benefit. Like how can I up the cooking game? Maybe go to bartending school while I'm at it, learn to make some good cocktails. Although at that point, there's a decent chance alcohol is going to be like tobacco, where it's just no one uses it because it's frowned upon. It'll
Don't
be like
say that,
It'll be
Corey.
like cigarettes. The
It's
data is out
shameful.
there that says there's nothing good about it for you other
I
than a few hours
know.
of happiness.
I know. I know. Blech.
But who knows? But you're starting to see the non-alcoholic cocktails and spirits come
So
about.
much.
So,
Yeah.
which part of that, it's like they're the same price as the real stuff. So I'm like, all right, if I'm gonna pay this much money, like, can I at least get a little buzz going?
Yeah.
I don't know. So, um, Yeah, Lindsay and I were talking. I was looking at Lewis Hamilton's agave spirit that's non-alcoholic, but it's $40 a bottle. I'm like, all right, if I'm gonna spend $40, I'll get real tequila. Um,
Yep.
anyways, moving along. So yeah, college savings, planning for it, trying not to oversave. Who knows? We'll see what happens because kids.
Yep.
Um, insurance planning. So yes, we have it. We do it. We've got the fancy health plan through work, in part because work pays for most of it, rather than the HSA option. With young kids, like, we did that because you don't know what you're gonna get when you have a kid, if they're gonna have health issues or not. So, rather just have it covered by the insurance. Um, but on the disability front, I try and maximize as much as I can get. I'll bump it up every year or two with as income rises. Um, if it rises enough to warrant an increase, I'll look at bumping that up. And yeah, the disability, again, we practice what we preach. If I can't work, that's probably the biggest problem in our life because we got a mortgage, we got kids, we got expenses, we need income to pay that stuff. So I want to make sure the income's replaced if I can't earn an income. Life insurance, I've got enough term insurance that if I die tomorrow, I'll pay off the mortgage, set money aside for the kids, and probably set Lindsay up for the rest of her life if she has a good financial planner. So,
In
um,
your absence.
yeah, there's a few that she could get in touch with here that she knows that would do a good job for her at probably a reasonable cost.
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, assuming she doesn't remarry. But I might convert some of that term to an index life policy at some point, just to have a little bit of permanent coverage and, an option for some tax deferred accumulation, to be determined on that one, at this juncture. I do have IULs on both kids though, that I'm max funding so that, when they're adults, they'll have a little bit of life insurance in case they can't get approved for whatever reason, or, they'll have some cash value in there too that they could either cash out or they could just let it pay for itself for the long run. They could, borrow against it. They'll have some options with that. And then on the home and auto side of things, maximize the liability coverage on all of it. Like get the max liability on the home and the auto policies. Like I think I have 1 million on of personal liability there. I've maximized my uninsured motorist liability coverage to 1 million. So if I'm hit by someone without insurance, I'll at least be covered up to 1 million. And then
Mm-hmm.
I believe I have 3 million of umbrella coverage. Um, might bump that up to 5 million soon, just because I've heard some horror stories of, people with car accidents. Um, and it's, umbrella is pretty cheap. Like you can get a large amount of coverage for a pretty low cost. So it's just that, God forbid, I'm at fault in a car accident and I get sued, want the insurance to cover the full cost of that scenario rather than them having to go after me personally. And that could create some headaches and expenses that I don't necessarily want to deal with.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of a nightmare scenario. The bad car accident. We have the high deductible health plan, partially because Nick's work puts a good chunk of money into the HSA for us and kind of covers a lot of like maybe out of pocket expenses we might have through the year, but we don't touch it. We actually leave the money in the HSA. We actually just started like kind of saving receipts and things like that because I mean we could potentially tap into that account later, but it was partially because it just was building faster than I thought it was going to, and I was like I kind of assumed that we would be able to use all of that money for healthcare expenses when we're retired, but I was like, oh gosh, if we keep doing this for the next 20 years, like maybe not, like this might be too much money, and I'd rather have receipts to go back to than have to take out that money pre-tax. Yeah, so that's where we're at with health insurance. I like it a lot. I should probably pay a little more attention because we do have some out-of-pocket costs for like Colette has allergy treatments and things like that, but it doesn't seem like anything too crazy. And with disability insurance, I have both an individual policy and a group policy. which is helpful. And then for Nick, I just had him do like the buy up option at work, which was it was adequate to like cover his income, which was great. So his work actually has some great benefits, which has been really helpful. And then we both have term life insurance policies. Nothing too crazy. I had thought about doing the IUL thing as well, Corey. And then I feel like I'm just kind of over it. I just feel like it's one of those things that is maybe more complicated than it needs to be. And I would just rather keep things simple and just not mess around with more complicated things, which is maybe a poor reason to make that choice. But it's one of those things I feel like we don't need it. So why do it and just move on? We definitely have like maximum liability limits on all the things on home and auto insurance with an umbrella policy as well. But I think ours is just 1 million right now, which we should probably look at and revisit, honestly. And another thing we should revisit. So, kind of one of the last things on our list is estate planning, which immediately makes me feel guilty. We did do it, it is set up. We do have a will, but it was a few years ago. I feel like I didn't know what I was doing at the time. We created a trust, but we never funded it. Like, in order for anything to be in a trust, you have to retitle things and change beneficiaries and all this stuff. So we just have this basically fake trust that won't do anything if either of us passes away. And part of it was because I wasn't confident that the attorney set it up correctly. And so I just didn't want I didn't want it to be wrong, right? Because that feels like it would have some pretty massive implications. So this year we did sign up for legal insurance through my husband's work, through Nick's work, to give me a little extra incentive to revisit it because I think, it's going to be important. Also, one thing that I think about a lot, Corey, is like, where do we put all this important stuff? So our like partners know where to find it because I feel like Nick would be in trouble because I'm the keeper of the knowledge, but I don't know.
Yeah, we have one of those little fireproof safes in the closet that we've got our legal docs in. The issue is if one of us forgets the password or we both
Yes, that's
pass
what I was just
away.
thinking. Yes.
I think I've emailed the password to my family at one point in time. The odds of them having that email and being able to find it.
Exactly. Like this is the thing that I like
There's
keeps me up at night.
there's got to be a way though to like drill through that keypad and open it somehow.
Totally. It's not like it. Yeah.
I don't know how though. And like they know the attorney who set it up. Like I've given them that. So like the attorney's office should have a copy too, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, it's the communication of where stuff is, who to get in contact with. Like it's important to have one of those you call it a death note. It's like in case I
I
die,
know.
here's where all the things are, here's the passwords, here's
I need
who to
that.
go to. You have to update that periodically. Like I
Just
think our
like put it on your
last,
refrigerator.
yeah, maybe
Just,
not on the fridge because like if someone breaks into your house, it's like, all right, here's the
oh,
keys to your life. But yeah, put it in the safe or put it like in the crawl space or some hidden, behind a picture. I don't know.
where an
Um,
important person knows where to find it.
exactly. But yeah, I need to revisit that one because it's been a few years since I last printed the if I die uh note. Um, but yeah, same thing, estate plan. Like we set up an estate plan about 6 years ago, 7 years ago now.
Hmm.
After
Yeah.
our oldest was born, probably should revisit it. All we did was just a basic living will with a testamentary trust that everything would go into if both of us die for the benefit of the kids. Might want to update that to a living trust, but same thing. The idea of like retitling everything seems like a pain in the butt. So we're as bad as our clients on this front. It's
I
like,
always, whenever I talk to my clients about this, I'm like, this is important. It's also hard. Like, but it is important, but it's hard. It's like this double-sided thing for sure.
yeah, that's probably one of the like recurring items on the reminder list
Absolutely.
for clients. I'm like, hey, friendly reminder for the umpteenth time to get this done. And yeah, no, I'm with you. At least we did it the first time, so we got something there, but might
Yeah,
need to
absolutely.
update it. It's due for an update. Um, Wrapping up here with the fun world of taxes. not a fan of taxes. I took a couple accounting classes in college and was like, that's enough for me. So I have an accountant do my taxes. I'm pretty organized with everything. So, I keep things nice and organized for my accountant to easily be able to go through everything. I'm not just like sending him a box of loose receipts and saying, figure it out. It's, here's the deductible expenses for the year and the different categories they're in. Here's all my tax forms from the various entities. Here's like the summary of what we did, how much we saved into these accounts. So it's as straightforward as possible for the accounting people to do the accounting things that they do. And then they just tell me, here's what you owe. Here's how much more you can add to that solo 401k. Here's what your quarterly estimates are for the year. And I pay the quarterly estimated taxes. I just set them up on auto pay on the websites for the IRS and the state. And then usually touch base in the fall, be like, hey, here's where things are so far this year. Here's where my income's looking like it's going to end up. Here's what I've paid already in taxes. Should I pay more for that final estimate? Should I not pay it? Like this year, state of Oregon's given everyone a refund on their state taxes because they collected too much tax revenue, and there's some goofy legislation in their, I don't know,
It's in the Oregon
constitution.
Constitution.
It's like,
Yeah,
hey, if
that
we collect more than we budgeted for, we're gonna give some back to everyone. I'm like, hey, you've got like a lot of other issues you could use this money for. Like, how about we shore up
uh-huh.
PERS, or pay school teachers that are on strike, or like, fix the homeless issues. But whatever. I guess I won't say no to getting some money back.
Right, because that
Um,
is an option. You can say, please keep my money, but no one does that.
Well, yeah, it's like, oh, you could donate it to the state. And I'm like, well, I want to know how it's going to be used. I don't want to just pay some crooked politicians to, yeah. Anyways, so yeah, I'll take it back and I'll donate it myself if I want to some cause. Um, anyway, so I ended up not paying my final quarterly estimate for the state because the refund I'm going to get is probably larger than the last quarter's estimate for the state. So, like, why pay extra money just to get more back in April?
Yep.
So, anyways, yeah, touch based. I do like a mid-year or 3/4 year touch base with the accountant just to make sure we're on the right track and there's not going to be any surprises come April.
Yep. I'm still doing it myself, and I probably shouldn't be, but I am.
Well,
I do feel like I'm pretty organized. I have everything in the folders. I save everything as I go so that it's very much all in one place when it's time to file taxes. But it's also like such a hodgepodge. Like, so I have like a portion of my income is 1099 income, like Corey just talked about. And how I've dealt with that so far is just make Nick take a bunch of extra money out of his W-2 paycheck and pay ahead on taxes so that I don't even have to do quarterly estimates. But it's not going to work forever. It's very much like this like band-aid situation right now. So I have actually reached out to an accountant to help with taxes next year and like help with 2024 planning. But I basically was like, I know you're busy right now. I get it if you don't respond to my email for 3 months. And I haven't heard back from him, which is what I expected. But I think 2024 is the year. I think I'm done. Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
Well, I got to run, but to
Yeah.
wrap things up, we practice what we preach. For those of
Yeah,
you
we
who are our
do.
clients, we're pretty much doing the exact same stuff we tell you guys to do, or should be doing. And yeah,
Yep.
so we're in this boat together.
If you ever have questions, you can ask us.
Cool.
Cool.
That's what
Thank
we're here
you.
for. Have a good one.